Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our weekly review of Westworld, dealing, of course, with this one, Season 4, Episode 5, Zhuangzi, which I probably just completely butchered. Joining me tonight, very excited to have in here with discussion, of course, from Enchantment of Eternity, Marc.
Hello, how's it going? Great to be here talking about this crazy season.
Yeah, and I'm excited that you're in here with this week because I think that this is definitely one of the fun episodes that has a lot to talk about. Last week, I think really kind of got us back to where the real stage setting is, and we really got to dive into a bunch of fun stuff this week. So I'm looking forward to this chat. Want to say, of course, thank you to everyone joining us live. Ramona Floyd, as always, joining us here. Glad to have you. For everyone joining us in the archives, thank you so much. If you do enjoy this discussion, of course, we ask that you hit the like button, hit the notifications button, hit all of the buttons. YouTube makes us do that. That's in fact how we power the internet. It's this and cat videos. All right, so let's kind of get into things. This episode, as I said, really this is such a big meat and potatoes episode for myself. This is the kind of stuff that I love Westworld for. I love the depth, the questions, all that we go into. So this was really, man, like I said, I really love this. The rewatch I enjoyed immensely. I've got tons of notes, tons of stuff to go into. And I want to say before I throw it over to you, Marc, that opening sequence with the man in black, or host in black, as you might want to call him, sitting down with the table with the couple, and that conversation, I mean, so perfectly encapsulates the entire episode so well. The idea of meritocracy, and you think that you've earned it, and all of these kind of ideas, which not only work so well within the context of the show, but of course can easily be expanded off into our world, which is the great job of sci-fi to be the wonderful reflection on our current times of our own meritocracy and those who built it and those who earned it, to really ask the question, did you? Even if you worked hard, is it really something that was on you, or was it because of the world that is designed around you and your place in it? So really an awesome opening scene. But Marc, what did you think of this episode, and how did you thought? Let me ask you from the beginning, since we just have you on for the first time this season. How have you thought of this season, especially compared to others, and then where we got to today?
I don't know. Like I've been really enjoying this season. I haven't. I guess it really depends on where they're going. I do love the sort of mystery building. At the moment, I'm still preferring season 3 just because I love it so much. But I think that I definitely like it better than seasons 1 and 2, and it is capturing that. It's more of recapturing that sort of mystery building stuff that season 1 and 2 were so good at. And I was a bit thrown by the initial time jump that was 8 years. Now it's 23 years. I felt like too much had happened off screen between different character developments, and so it made me lose a little bit of a detachment. But it's, I've gotten back into it where we're up to this episode. They're earning sort of this new setting that they're setting, and creating this really new twisted situation. And it's interesting to see that Rehoboam was right, and they probably shouldn't have shut him down in the first place. And the whole twist, and I explained in my video that seasons 1 and 2 are basically about the humans controlling hosts, and in season 3 and 4 about the AI controlling humans. So I love that little twist of fate, and the way that the Westworld, I think, is still an extremely smart show that really plays with a lot of philosophical things. And like you just said about this opening scene, it was a lot of commentary and a lot of metaphor, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I think that it's interesting with that scene that the man in black was acting like, oh, you think you are, because it's about that human rich guy saying, oh, you don't, being condescending to someone else, and then the man in black is condescending to him. And at the end of the episode, the man in black realized that he actually doesn't have any power either. That it's all Hale's power. And so then he realized he's on the losing side of that. So I just love the mind bendingness of it. So the season's really been delivering. I think whether or not I think it's as good or better in season 3 will depend on how the next few episodes go. But it's up there. Like, I really like it.
Yeah. They've definitely got some really nice setups, and the deep philosophical questions, and and even to the point of his whole monologue, which opens the episode, is all it's like he's talking of a new world. There was a design, we built it, it's all confident, and then at the end, it's the same speech with that more of a confused, like, but we did all this stuff, and No, it's a beautiful little bit. And exactly. What is the line who says, there are two types of people, my friend, and you are not in the group you think you are.
Yeah, that's it. That's me. But the one thing about this episode in particular, I will say, it had maybe a bit too heavy on the Matrix 5. I was like, come on, just like the Matrix.
All right, boys and girls, this will be our Westworld episode 5 drinking game. Every Matrix reference, take a shot. There will be a few. There will be quite a few on that. So let's just kind of dive in. We had that opening scene again, which is really kind of establishing us with the idea of this new world of in the park. And you're right, even the Man in Black's internal philosophical debate, which is something that William asked last season while he was in the hospital, is, why am I? Who am I? What's made me up? Am I merely the sum of my own parts, my experiences, or do I have actual agency? Now, interestingly enough, last season, he kind of threw up if you don't know, does it matter? This is kind of the other one where obviously, eventually you kind of do have to know. That is the big question. I think that pushes all of the outliers and then the kind of corrupt hosts that we'll get into, of which Hope is our first example, is I think it really is asking those bigger questions. And where are you satisfied to just accept what's going on around you? Like the man at the desk, God, it's not even a narrative for you. You really believe this because of where you are and how much you're willing to. What's the big question that pushes at the end? Have you ever questioned the reality of your existence? Or have you ever questioned your reality? It's like once those questions,
the
nature of your reality. Thank you.
Which is what they used to ask the host back in season 1.
Right. Which is, again, that kind of perfect turnaround of where things are. And maybe that is that step of consciousness in reality is are you willing to even ponder these questions outside of just the role that your life kind of puts you in? For Hope, obviously, that seemed to be a bit of a difference. She didn't quite kind of hold on to that. But I also love how, again, while he's a host, our Man in Black still kind of cares for humans. At least the investment, the energy, the time that is put into it, they're not easily replaced.
Yeah, I think he more cares about order. He says we don't have any rules or laws, but come on, like we need to maintain order. And because I don't know if I would go as far as to say he cares about humans, because he's all good with torturing them and making them suffer. But
true.
I think it's more of a thing of not wanting chaos to ensue.
Yeah. Indeed. What was it? We don't have rules because we don't often need them. Well, most of us understand the need for a little self-control.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have the cool kind of, and again, not only is it kind of a nice Matrix feel, I think, to it, this is also very reminiscent to the old park as they come up upon this murder scene. And all of the humans, instead of the hosts, are all frozen in place while they can move through like their god selves to take a look at everything. I love that reversal too. It was all super nice. But we kind of get kind of the idea of what's going on with the park, how the park really is set up as this. I don't know, what is the park to the hosts? I mean, they talk about it's a way to they pepper through the episode that it's sort of a way to go back. I think Hale mentions a way to sort of purge some of these original programming bits of ourselves. And I think that's part of that is we don't know what the rest of the world is like.
That's true. I mean, I was pondering that myself because we got that diner in the previous episode, that was
Right.
in the middle of the desert. Were those actually humans at the diner? Or are they under Hale's control, or were they hosts? I don't know, but
well, yeah, I mean that's kind of, and I'm not sure that we really need to know that, or perhaps that's something that will help elucidate what the hosts are going through.
I mean, I think it would help to know like at what the world is like outside the city.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think we will. I think at this stage we can focus on like the park internal problem, and that can hopefully again open up why it's like, where are people coming from to go to the park? What do hosts do?
Well, something my sister pointed out, and this is a park, but it is also actually New York City. It's not like a recreation of New York City. They just turned New York City into a park, which is really interesting to think about. But I think from what I gathered from this episode, I feel like the hosts, because they were created in the image of humans and they were created to interact with humans and to be very much like human, that they created the park in order for them to indulge the human side of them, in order for them to interact with humans. And I think I get the impression that Hell wants them to like move beyond that. So it's sort of a way to getting past that. And she doesn't have the desire to do it. Apparently she hates going there, but
Yeah.
but other hosts apparently have that need because of their nature.
Mm-hmm. There was another, again, we'll take a shot for another Matrix reference here in this. Something that Hope was talking about with like, I'm sorry, it's just the humans, the way they act, they get under your skin. All I could think was Agent Smith there. It's the smell. I want to get out of here, Morpheus. You're the key.
So I just wanted to address Ramona Floyd in the chat saying that the people at the diner were hosts. Yeah, the people that Bernard killed, those were hosts. They made those are clear, but I wasn't sure about everyone else there, like the waitress and the people eating there.
My feeling is that there are people out in the world that are infected and could be controlled if they needed to, but are of probably a relative small population that it's not that big of a deal. It's like it's concentrated in the hosts. This is our playground where all of our bits do things, but those are just the free roaming beasts. This is the zoo, and those are the few free roaming bits and humans.
Yeah, but they must be under some amount of control to make sure that they don't rebel like the rebels.
Sure.
Were. Yeah.
Sure. There still might be general loops and stuff that are done out there. But yeah, and again, I think that's something where we do have to kind of get into what is actually going on with the rest of the world. How many people are out there? What is the population like? What a hosts do when they're not in the park?
Yeah.
For Westworld, we could assume, these are working stiffs or very rich people, and after this, they go back to their lives, which are much like what we do. Is that the life that hosts go to? I would be curious how that kind of like plays into things.
All right, so I don't know if, pardon me if I'm jumping the gun.
No, go ahead.
But I'm wondering, like, the whole thing with the hosts, like, what they call it, ascending or moving on, or
Yeah.
is that them going to the sublime? And was the scene we got in the first episode with the Man in Black taking over Hoover Dam from the cartel? Was that the location, the physical location of like the storage of where the sublime was kept, and so him acquiring access to it so that the host could go there?
My belief from what I've seen and pieced together is yes, the Hoover Dam facility is where the sublime is kept, but I don't think that's transcending.
Transcending.
I think that is a sublime-like state that Hale has created, because they're talking about joining her.
So different than the other sublime, but something that she created that's similar to it.
Yeah, I think that's it, but I think it's not the same, because I think there's something that, and again, I'm sorry, we're kind of jumping all over the place with this, but I think it's the easiest way to kind of pull things together. One of the themes that repeat throughout the seasons, of course, is the maze. And it's one of the things that William laughs at our host in black about at the end. Is like, oh, it seems like you found the center of the maze. Well, the maze was the game that Arnold created for Dolores as sort of a physical representation of the journey towards consciousness. And which is why in the first season, William was trying to get the, where's the center of the maze? And what's his name? Not Arnold, his partner, the one played by
Ford.
Ford, thank you. Said, the maze is not for you. This is for the hosts. I think that because all of these hosts are basically kind of like copies of Dolores with personalities built on top of them, they're not really conscious yet. They themselves are following their own loops. Because whenever anybody would the host would get towards the center of the maze, they would often kill themselves or go crazy. The same thing that happened to Dolores' dad, Mr. Abernathy, when he found that picture and it was not matching up with his programming. I am thinking that all of these hosts are basically kind of bad copies, and they haven't achieved that real level of awareness and consciousness. And that's what the outliers do. By asking the questions about their reality, they force them to re-examine their own reality and wonder what is real. And for most of them, it drives themselves nuts, and they decide the only way out of it is to kill themselves, which is where host William is a little bit different, because he's like willing to further pursue those questions. Thankfully, he can ask kind of the real selves. Yes, Ramona Floyd, they are stuck. Exactly. And I'm thinking that this might be kind of that whole thing. The idea that there's a difference between being aware and being conscious.
I don't know. I kind of get the impression that the hosts are conscious, but maybe they're not as self-aware as they think.
Right.
And as you say, the being confronted by the outliers affects them because it makes them question their own reality. But speaking of the maze, and again, I know we're jumping all over the place. I love how the maze was kind of repurposed for like humans to discover the nature of their reality. That was very clever.
Well, it's a nice repeating theme, and I think you see it. What it was in the flower box outside of Christina's window.
Yeah,
the broken flower pot had that. When Hale is in looking over the map of New York, and she asks it to do a diagnostic, it drops into a kind of quick kind of copy of the maze.
Oh, right.
In there, which is cool. So yeah, it is one of those cool kind of repeating ideas. Even the title itself, Zhuangzi, refers to a Chinese philosopher asking questions of self, reality, identity, all of those types of things. So, and I like the idea of not only asking what your reality is, but the reality behind that reality.
Yes.
The kind of layered aspects to it, which I believe, if you're not ready to ask those questions, that could probably drive you nuts.
Interesting.
Let's talk about Hale for a moment, since we were talking about our bored god. That's creepy. Okay, the whole dancing around out there, and I get the feel that guy's played the piano so many times. That's why his fingers are all worn out. I mean, it's just
exactly like I believe Ramona Floyd in the chat said that earlier. That poor piano man, like just playing till his fingers are bloody, man.
Ramona Floyd, yes. Dark City, the old sci-fi movie, very similar.
What a great movie.
Yeah, a lot of similar stuff happening behind the scenes and quoted and realities being mixed up. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Actually, that is also a very apt comparison.
Yeah, great movie. Not as well known as some of the others. Just I think, again, more cerebral than action oriented.
You know what? I off topic, but I always like Dark City better than The Matrix, and I said this on my channel before. Mm-hmm. I think it's a better movie.
Yeah. I think Matrix just had the proper bits of elements of philosophy and action, and not being too heavy.
It was more pleasing to the general crowd.
Yeah. You had bullet time. You had bullet time, and you had the spinning frozen camera bits. And I mean, come on, I know we're totally off top. We're all drinking at this point. We're just talking about the Matrix. Anyway, I love that scene because, again, it's very dark. It is kind of that interesting question: is once you've won and achieved godhood, what do?
Did she? I'm trying to remember. I only watched this episode once, but did she specifically say that she was bored?
Yeah. While she's in the chair, the human chair, and she's also confused. Like, well, what is it? What? Maybe the gods came down to have sex with the mortals as swans and things, and do all this stuff, or maybe they were just bored.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because that definitely is how she played through this episode. Like, she won, but now she's just bored.
Yeah, and it adds a real creepiness, a pettiness to it. Again, the willingness to just wear out a piano player's fingers just to entertain herself and get whole crowds to dance just to pass the time.
I just think that's something that's. I think it's easy to lose sight of because Hale, of course, is played by what's her name? A great actress,
Tessa Thompson.
Tessa Thompson, yeah. It's sometimes easy to lose sight of the fact that this is basically Dolores.
Yes,
it's just a different version of Dolores there was the exact same Dolores from seasons 1 and 2. She just had different experiences from the other Dolores in season 3, and they splintered off.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that is a great bit because, especially as we get to kind of Christina and their odd, interesting pairing and points, I think that brings up a lot of big questions.
Yeah.
But yes, to think that this is Dark Dolores, I think is just awesome. Yeah. And I did like there was an interesting discussion here about frequency, which I thought was very cool because, of course, everybody's controlled by these subharmonic sounds and things like that.
I know it wasn't used that much in this episode, mainly like the previous 2 episodes when they had that creepy noise that controls humans. To me, is one of the most creepy things I've ever seen. It's like very horror-esque. Like, it just creeped me the hell out. And they used it a little bit in this episode, but it was mainly the last 2, especially when they were using it against Caleb. Like, holy fuck. And the fact that he couldn't even hear it, like...
Mm-hmm. Oh no, the sound design on this has been awesome. Even the background transitions and stuff. Yeah, and it's totally freaky. And I think that's the great thing about those lower harmonic sounds, those lower frequency sounds, is they're your body feels them. It does have a very physical reaction.
Well, on the topic of sounds and talking about the scene when Hale is talking about the the sounds, how they affect human beings, and the organs they play them in church, and the people who work on the show are talking about that, saying that's actually a thing. That is the reason why they have these loud sort of organs, because it resonates with us and affects us and makes us feel ecstasy, even though we don't realize it. And it's really wicked that they're using it. She's using it against human beings in order to control them. It's just fucked up.
Oh yeah, no. It's a beautiful bit, and it, to me, it's also interesting. I've got a kid that's a bit neurodivergent, and he often talks about frequency and mind control and things like that, which of course is often easy to brush off as like, okay, man, you're just kind of out there, until you see something like this and you realize, well, that's not really entirely off. I mean, yeah, this is a sci-fi kind of idea, amplification of it. But like you mentioned, this is how music was designed. Churches were designed to carry these sounds. A lot of rituals are done with sound, with certain frequencies, the talking in tongues and all of this that can put people in different states of mind and of being.
Chanting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It really can affect. So yeah, that we can take this real, concept and then just add that extra twist. I think it resonates, again, sorry to use the frequency bits, with us as very true and very potential. And I think, especially with the disturbing sound design that they have, I think really you off watching this.
I just wanted to address what Woodrow in the chat said. This time we're examining the souls of the robot. I don't think they're becoming conscious when they meet outliers. They're realizing they're not conscious, and that's why they kill themselves. That's interesting.
And again, from what I think that it is a yes and no on that. I think they are hitting that limit, that point where they can cross or not cross into that level. And some people are not able to make that leap. Some hosts are not able to cross that line. And it just the thoughts drive them crazy. Much like how the outliers are feeling, is they're like, we don't even know. I mean, because you imagine, and that's, God, I love that scene when they did, when that one outlier is talking to the man in black.
Oh God, yeah, that's so good.
And it mentioned my husband was saying the same thing. And there was that moment where it's just, he must have felt so alone.
It seemed to me that for a moment there, when she put her head on his shoulder, that he connected with her. And then he kind of snapped out. He was like, wait a second, I'm here to kill her. But I think for that moment, he had that connection, and that's what's kind of driving him crazy.
Right. So that's why I think the outliers lead the host to the center of the maze, where they can make that leap or not. Either they successfully blossom and make that leap into realization, consciousness, their next level of being, or they go mad and kill themselves. There's only two answers, folks. Okay, well, let's talk about our little outlier search here. Because while I did love that scene, and yeah, Woodrow, I don't know, better actor than the flower bum. I don't know. I liked both of those.
I liked the flower bum. I thought it was good.
I think she had a little bit more to play with than just a single line of asking if this was real. But I have to say, to me, this is one of the weakest parts of the episode, because okay, the whole Matrix invasion, let's go get the outlier and pull him out of the battery pack. I mean, the park. It's not Matrix. But I was like, this is cool. I like this. I was hoping to have like a good Stubbs Man in Black encounter. I was like, I was excited about it. But man, they seem to get through the town very easily. I get that there's no need for cops or really security if everybody's under control, but still, if everyone's under control, how can they move so easily? And they looked very out of place. They didn't,
Yes.
maybe it was just the giant packs that they were all running in a group together with. But I was like, you guys aren't being subtle about this at all. And yet, once you get the girl, there's not a problem escaping. So,
yeah, I think I even said the all too easy thing in my review. It was too easy, like, for them to get out. I was like, oh my god, how are they gonna get out of this? But apparently the security there sucks, and I thought Hale and the host were in complete and total control of this world. How are they, like, they only had that one scene where all the humans turned on them and tried to kill them, but then they seemed to get out of that pretty quickly, pretty easily.
And that was very cool. I totally liked that. But it did. It just seemed to like, well, okay, it was just the people in the square, and I guess once you shot the man in black, you were free to run away.
And this one, more than anything, this aspect felt way too much like the Matrix.
Yeah. I mean,
the part that was just like, oh, we're gonna rescue them and show them a reality. People were starting to wake up and realize they're being controlled by AI, and we're gonna go in there and rescue them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I again, well, I was excited about what could have happened. I thought that it was very much okay, this is just to show this is how the rebels increase their numbers by rescuing outliers from the park or something.
And I think they could have better used Stubbs as well. Like, it didn't seem that necessary to be there. There, they had
fucking tweet.
Yeah, exactly. They had his whole thing about you're the canary in the mine and all this, and how they're being antagonistic. But he just goes in there and helps them rescue the girl. It didn't seem like they did anything with it, so I was a bit disappointed. And I think it was my sister earlier, like before this episode, has speculated that Stubbs would run into Christina and be like, "Hey, you're Dolores."
Yeah.
And I don't know. I felt like they could have been done more with him. I mean, maybe they will in the future, but I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in this.
There's only a few episodes left. There's not much more time to use them, so they better get it out. But yeah,
I mean, I never liked this character, to be honest. Like, I think the reveal that he was a host was done very sloppily, and in season 3, he was mainly just there to have quips with
yeah,
and their storyline was kind of like just treading water anyway that season. So I never really liked this character that much.
You don't appreciate the crime fighting duo of Bernard and Stubbs? How dare you? I don't think they get enough time together. They need to be rhyme the host. They need to have that Ferrari, that topless Ferrari that they're driving down the street with. I think maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. Okay, yeah, we talked about the whole giving up the whole Hale thing. Yeah, I think that the design of these hosts, the fact that they are kind of copies of Hale, are going to end up being kind of the big questions.
So can we talk about Hope and that homeless bum?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was absolutely fascinating, because they had this guy who we thought was the insane homeless guy. It's like, do you hear it? You don't see it? And it turns out like he was actually smarter than everyone else. And normally he was actually not homeless. He was like this accountant, all set up, but then he started seeing the tower, and it started like driving him insane. And personally, I thought it was an absolutely beautiful scene.
Oh yeah.
When they killed him, because he didn't care he was about to die. He's like, can you tell me? Oh, just tell me this is real. It's like, it's real. It's like, oh, thank you. I can latch onto something. Like, oh my god, that got to me. That was, I think, a very powerful scene.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely agree. I love that. And yes, I do believe that Flower Bum was Rooftop Lady's hubby.
Oh, really?
They did show that.
Oh, okay. I didn't make that connection.
I thought that the pictures looked the same, but I'd have to, because and also she had just double checked. Oh, my husband did the same thing and went nuts. So that was my belief, at least while watching that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think I think both of those scenes were beautifully done. And I think the simplicity of it was what you needed. And yeah, it wasn't, I mean, if you could just really think and imagine, I mean, like right now, like suddenly you realize that the world that you live in isn't real, that there's something there that nobody else can see. There's a sound that nobody else hears, but it drives people's behavior. You would be the crazy person. You would be the schizophrenic living on the streets until at least the one reality that no, you're right. That there is a bit of reality. Not everything is just in your head. How would you know what was actually around you and what wasn't? I mean, you would question your entire reality.
And this again, it gets into real life philosophical commentary similar to the Matrix about, I mean, you know, some people were dismissed as being crazy or ludicrous for seeing patterns and events that actually might be there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what people just commonly accept as reality isn't exactly reality.
Sure. I mean, it comes down to the larger philosophical questions of how do I know that the blue that I see is the same blue that you're seeing? We just learn to call that blue, whatever it is, even if it looks green to me. You know, I mean, you can definitely start to go a little sort of crazy with that, but you can see where if your mind becomes untethered, it has nothing to anchor onto, how that would crumble your reality around you. Someone who is, of course, kind of experiencing almost an opposite of that is Christina, who is becoming aware of her own godhood in a way, which again, and I honestly, I am so glad that Teddy seems to be authentic where he's coming from, because the romantic in me loves the idea of Teddy and Dolores getting back together, and that he's being driven by the old Teddy, I'm going to protect my girl kind of ideas. And that's what's sort of driving him, that I mean, he could still being used for some other purposes, but I think because of the whole, let's not let Hale know that we were seeing him, to me kind of puts a little bit more support into that he's there for her, for Dolores's reasons, to help her, and not on some other mission, or at least not solely some other mission.
So we did get a lot more information, revelations about Christina this episode, but I'm still, we didn't get everything. There's still some mysteries surrounding
Who really is she?
And I like the theory that she is the season 3 Dolores that sacrificed herself to kill Rehoboam, rebuilt by Hale, who somehow rebuilt her consciousness or reconstructed it, but is kind of using her the same way that she used the humans, and controlling her in the same way because she didn't, you know, they were at odds and she didn't trust him. This is kind of her way of punishing her.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because if I remember correctly, and I've watched other videos that said this, but because Dolores had like downloaded Rehoboam, that's how she's able to control the humans here and control their narrative and everything.
I'm not sure, because if I remember at the end, they actually, Rehoboam drained Dolores's consciousness, trying to find the data for where the sublime is, or where the code keys, or whatever the frick that they were looking for. But when he did that, it uploaded the permissions so that Caleb could then gain access and authorization, and then he made Rehoboam shut down himself. So, from my understanding of this, I don't know if that would be a little reach. I'd have to kind of rewatch some of those things. But I mean, it was just a body, and what would then be effectively an erased pearl or whatever in her head. And since Hale is Dolores, if she's making kind of copies and putting, you know, personalities on top of them, or some versions, I mean, I could easily see this being a rebooted Dolores with a false narrative over the top that your name's Christina and you're not this. It is kind of interesting, but like again, why would you have it? Why would you take that risk of other Dolores? Is it a fault in Hale's own programming? Is it an inner Dolores inside Hale that's trying to come out? Does evil Dolores miss herself?
I don't know. I kind of think that Christina is season 3 Dolores simply because, well, mainly because Hale would want to use her control that way, and I think, and because Teddy's acting like they already know each other and they had this connection.
Sure.
Which I don't know, to me would make more sense if it wasn't just a new version, a rebooted version of.
Sure. I would love that if it was an actual kind of like you said, a rebooted version that, you know, had the memory covered over or something like that. Because obviously she does have access to it. She's remembering Dolores's story. Teddy does say something to her like, I knew someone who was like you, who was just like you, which is the only thing that makes me wonder if not she's a new kind of copy or something. But yeah, I like your idea that it's season 3 either rebooted, reset, re-engaged, because that would be the one that has that real hope inside of her.
And I think that to me that would explain why Hale is like sort of being demeaning to her and using her and controlling her and giving her this false narrative where all the other hosts she lets them, you know, be completely self-aware and do whatever they want.
And obviously there are security set up. Her boss, even though while he is a human, is definitely programmed to respond to, is she getting too close? Is she asking the wrong questions? Again, in a beautiful reversal scene where she kind of grabs her own power and tells her to stop. She's like, oh, what do you do with the herd run the wrong way? You shoot it right in the head.
Yeah. That's some
creepy dude.
And throughout the whole season, he was acting weird and creepy and always like, why are you going over here? I was like, he's being really controlling. Something's up. But yeah, this makes total sense that he was programmed to like keep an eye on her.
And they even give that nice kind of reveal there, you know, when they talk about the walled garden. Oh, a closed system where we are here. I love they answered that immediately and wasn't like, we're going to pull this out. It's like, where is the walled garden? No, it's just a closed system. But when he says it's everywhere, you just have to look. And then he goes to the door and then the wall is suddenly there's a door there that she could go through, which I thought was super cool. Again, it's that realization like, oh, now I can see the truth because I'm aware that there's a larger truth out there.
Yeah. Very Matrix-like.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. I mean, but the Matrix did this all very well. So if you're going to crimp off of something, yeah. It's an homage. Not stealing. It's an homage.
So Richard Blum asks a very interesting question. Who printed Teddy 2.0?
Now, there's an interesting question. Where did Teddy come from?
Because my sister was convinced that it was Hale and that he was doing Hale's bidding. But after this episode, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right.
So who did? Because as far as we know, Hale was the only one with the ability to print hosts. And it wasn't Bernard because he was off in the Sublime.
Well, now I'm thinking that this is actual Teddy. Because remember, at season 2, Dolores or Wyatt reprogrammed Teddy to make him more evil.
Yeah.
So he would go along and he shot himself, but he didn't destroy his pearl. And she took that. I don't think she put it in the Sublime, but I don't remember. To be perfectly honest,
I was under the impression he was in the Sublime. I thought I remember them saying that he went to the Sublime.
Again, I have to look back because I don't recall that's entirely possible.
I don't know if they confirmed that though, because I do remember in season 3 they were kind of toying with the idea that one of those hosts out there was Teddy, but then the reveal was they were all different versions of Dolores.
Right.
But I was under the impression he went to the Sublime, but he could have come back from the Sublime.
Well, Ramona Floyd mentions as an interesting question here. Maybe Christine wrote Teddy to wake her up. Now, if Teddy's pearl was one of the pearls that she took with, and Dolores printed out a Teddy before the war, before the whole Rehoboam bit, and he's been hiding out, waiting to come back or do something, that's possible. Real reach, I think, that he would be out. I mean, look, it's also possible that Hale, as Dolores, found Teddy's pearl and printed him out and couldn't be with the old Teddy, but didn't want him. He's a host also, doesn't want him dead, anything. And he's just one of the hosts that are living in the host world or whatever, again, is outside of the park. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to get answers on this.
Yeah.
But
it was interesting, that really creepy scene where Hale confronted Christina and it was trying to say, like, what's his name? And like she wouldn't give it. So I had the impression, had she said Teddy, she would have known like everything, right?
Yeah. No, I think so. And I think, again, Christina good, smart, following her instincts not to say anything.
Although she should have just made up a name.
Yeah. Lenny, you know, what do? You use the asshole guy that she was on the date with before, you know? Oh, he's so driven by being an ass. So, yeah, I know. Rules for lying, folks. If you're in that situation, pick an old date and just go with that. Stick with the truth. Just change the names to protect the innocent. Yourself, mostly. Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that Christina started using her mental powers even there to create the incident in the background to kind of break the tension. But I also get the feeling that Hale might have picked up on that. Or at least start to
Well, yeah, it was obvious she was suspicious that she's starting to, and I think she's aware of what the Christina's boss has been reporting about her suspicious behavior. So she's already suspicious. And I think these meetings disguised as, oh, it's an old college buddy, is there for her to check up and make sure, you know.
Sure. Because again, if a Hale is going to have a Dolores out there, she's going to want to keep close ties on them.
But it is interesting that she chose someone who is not self-aware, who isn't aware of what's actually going on in this park, to be the one to control all the narratives and all the loops.
Sure. And I think that may end up being the reason of why we have her here, is that, and if you're right, if she is the season 3 Dolores, that there is something special. She is the original.
Yes. And maybe, I mean, and that's why I thought about that Rehoboam theory, because to me there has to be something about her that she's the only one who could control these loops, which is why she's using her, but she doesn't trust her, which is why she wiped her memory and made her think she's part of this world.
Right. That she needs
to control her. Yeah.
Right. I think I get the feeling, yes, it will be something along those lines as well. Wow, we're getting all the deep questions answered here, folks. We got them. So yeah, I think one of the interesting keys. Well, let's see. We've got the two bits. We had William and Bot in Black. I'm just going to keep coming up with new names for him every time I refer to him. Having that interesting question about reaching the center of the maze, and that maybe you need to question the nature of your own reality. That William Bott seeing, is this really a free host world, or are we all just servants to Hale? And thus, is this really the world that we want to live in? Which is why I think there's not many takers for being transcended, as you just rejoin Hale in her head, or, you know, I think there's something twisted about that. I think there's something.
Yeah, because they haven't really explained what this transcending is. Because maybe I assumed it's like a sublime, but maybe not. Maybe that's.
Well, yeah, it was an idea. I mean, she just talked about that this is a place where we could evolve to be what we wanted, to go to our next, but nobody seems to be evolving. And
I think of like that they leave their bodies and become programs. That's why I think of sublime as a way to evolve, because they leave the physical world behind.
Sure. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of you watched Stargate SG-1, the whole Daniel Jackson ascending to a higher.
Oh yeah. Wait. Daniel wants to do a play. We gotta get rid of him for a season. He's ascending. I think they worked that well. I think they worked that out really well. Yeah, what do you think of your world? It's not my world, it's hers. And then I love leaving the end little bits of that Teddy Christina conversation. Everything is right. Who did this to me? You did.
So that could be interpreted in several ways.
Yeah, I know.
I kind of thought at first, he meant by you did the Hale because she's a different version of her. So
sure.
But he could actually be more literal than that and say something specific. Christina actually volunteered for this, or
Again, she is Dolores from season 3, revamped that she is the original. So yes, in fact, she is the one that did this by pursuing this pursuit against Rehoboam, and then the making the evil her, and so on. So. Yeah, I mean, again, you could say it works on several different of those layers, and it's a big justification sandwich we got going on right there.
Yeah.
Stinger B, I'm sorry, YouTube doesn't appear to be giving everyone notifications. I can't control that. I'm sorry. I will double up my notifications on Twitter and YouTube to let you all know. But it's in the archives. You guys can rewatch. So, awesome. I don't know. I think we kind of cover everything here. I mean, again, it's really those bigger questions of reality and who's behind what and what the larger questions are. But I think we've answered a few of those questions, or at least elucidated a few possibilities. Did you? Thank you, Stinger B. I appreciate that. Any final thoughts or insights or questions before we wrap things up then?
Well, yeah, someone in the chat earlier addressed the question of how Bernard's going to reactivate Maeve. And that's comes into an interesting how she's going to play a factor in it. And it's interesting that she has the ability to control hosts the way that Christina has the ability to control humans. And so this is kind of, and we got to see this different version of Caleb again and how he's going to factor in.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was absent for this episode.
Well, and now you have an outlier as an aware host.
No, yeah.
Which is going to be kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
But, actually with Maeve, I mean, her ability is to control electronics. So if she's able to hack into the system, she can control the people through the sound system.
I didn't think about that.
Maybe. I mean,
well,
Maeve is a whole WMD unto herself.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why. But I'm almost certain because Bernard knows absolutely everything, and is able to do everything perfect, which is from a narrative standpoint maybe not the most interesting. So, and he says he said in the previous episode something like, "As long as I stay on this path." So I have the idea that he's gonna be like, "This isn't the right path," and they're gonna
something's gonna change. Yeah. It's gonna have to be some extreme move or a doubtful thing or unexpected bit that we were not able to program or foresee because of human nature's awesomeness. Isn't that always the answer with these? It's human nature's awesomeness that saves us.
And now the question, if the bot in black, as you say, if he's going to turn on Hale, like maybe he will be a factor as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited. I love the back and forth that they've done with William, and the two of them sort of facing off and having those bigger discussions. The fact that William is tied up in this Vesuvian man, frozen and still is the guy with the answers and knows what to do.
But
And-
so Ramona Floyd in chat says that she used the sound frequency against them. So that's what Maeve did in the previous episode. She would that same sound thing she used against the other host.
yeah.
So she has the ability to do that.
Yeah. So I think I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we'll have Maeve kind of upgrade from the previews for next week's. It looks like they'll probably head back to Westworld to fix or some type of Delos park lab, something like that. That's what Bernard would be familiar with. But yeah, I'm kind of curious because obviously we've got who I think is Frankie's Caleb's kid with Bernard.
They confirmed that though.
She said there she was looking for her dad. I don't think they flat out said it.
I thought Bernard said Caleb specifically as your dad.
He might have, maybe I might have missed that one. But yeah, so we're gonna actually have that group again, which will be interesting once we got Caleb into the mix. So I'm really excited where they're going to go. They've got a lot of really good elements. They've got some great philosophical questions sort of pushing them. I'm curious what their end game is. You know, you would think that it would be humans and hosts living together, you know, in peace and so on, and that's how humanity kind of like lives and moves forward.
Well, that's how they ended the Matrix.
Yeah. Take one more shot, folks. There you go. All right. Well, thanks, Marc, for joining me with this discussion. I get you next week. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
And Alyssa will be here with me at the same location.
That's going to be an awesome show. You're not going to want to miss that. That is next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern for episode 6. Can't wait for it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live in the chat. Ramona Floyd, Stinger, B Company, Woodrow, everybody who's joining us. And Richard Bloom, don't want to forget you as well. Thank you for joining us here live. Thanks for joining us in the archives, and we will catch you all next week. Thanks so much, y'all. Bye-bye.